We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather, the Turrbal people of Yuggera land, as well as the Woiwurrung people of the Wurundjeri land. We recognise their continued connection to the land and waters of this beautiful place and acknowledge that they never ceded sovereignty. We respect all Turrbal and Woiwurrung elders and ancestors, and any First Nations people here today.
I can't take it anymore!
Good afternoon, good evening, good day, and good morning, Blurtstars, wherever you are around the world. You are listening to the new Blurt.
You absolutely are listening to the new Blurt. Good evening, afternoon, and morning, wherever you are in the world. I am the Kegsta, and tonight I'm coming to you from Wurundjeri country of the Kulin Nation of the Wurundjeri people. Sovereignty was never ceded, always has been, and always will be Aboriginal land. Now, if this is the first time joining the show tonight, good evening to you, or morning, or afternoon, or wherever the hell you are. Thanks for tuning in. We've got a fantastic show. A couple things on tonight is Blurt Around the World. We'll be talking about why you should never ever eat salmon from Tasmania from now on. And I will explain quite categorically why you should not do that. And what you are putting in jeopardy by doing so. We'll talk about Gina Rinehart, who demanded her portrait down from I think it was the Archibald Prize. We'll have a little bit of a chat about that. I think it was Namatjira, but I can't remember his first name. I think it's Vincent. I think it's Vincent Namatjira, but we'll go into that anyway. And she didn't like her picture, so she tried to steal it. But instead of it being hidden, etc., for no one to see, it went viral, as these things do. So that's pretty awesome. And Sam Kerr, the Australian genius for the Australian soccer team, which I can't remember what they are called. I just know it's the women's Australian soccer team, and they seem to be pretty brilliant. Anyway, she has been representing Chelsea Football Club in the UK for quite a while, and she's just helped them win their 5th premiership in a row. We'll have a little natter about that. And apparently a Comet shard blazes across the Spanish and Portuguese night skies, and I am sure Wencee will talk about that tonight. Also, we've got Party in the USA. I'm going to talk about MTG. Who's that? You'll find out soon. Wencee's going to talk about new gun excise tax in New California. It could be excise tax, I'm not sure. And anyway, and to round off the show, we'll have Do Yourself a Favour, which is always and always has been about the best podcast. Well, at least the ones we're listening to at the moment, we would highly recommend it. Maybe you do as well. With all of that done and dusted for another week, I would like to say good evening. Wencee.
Hello. Thank you, fans. Thank you all. Hello. Thank you. Before we go on, I'm just going to get straight into it. I want to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today, the Yuggera and Turrbal people of the Meanjin Nation, and pay my respect to elders past, present, and future. Hello, Kegsta. How are things down your way?
Hello, my friend. Yeah, no, very good, very cold. Trying to work out what the temperature is down here. I've normally got it somewhere, but I think here we go. It's down in the corner there. 9 degrees I'm getting 9 degrees.
Awesome. And it's not even winter yet.
No, it's not even winter yet. But as my daughter said to me about 3 weeks ago, it's winter. So she was probably closer than I was. But what's it like there up there in Brisbane at this time?
It's really pleasant outside. I have mentioned this in the past, where inside the house here is freezing. So I suspect there's no insulation at all, so it gets colder inside the house, even though as soon as you step outside you feel a little bit of warmth. It's like 22 degrees outside. As soon as you're in the sun, you're just taking off your jumpers and stuff.
Yeah,
but this morning it did get down to about 8 or 9 degrees when I woke up and had to take a little doggy outside for a wee break. Or a pee break.
You've been looking after a little doggy. It looks very cute. It's a whippet, isn't it?
No, it is an Italian Greyhound. We had it for 2 days and it went back to its owner this evening. So the withdrawal symptoms are already kicking in real hard. Missing the poor little four-legged friend that we made. So it was a little puppy, 4.5 months, doing really well. Needs a lot of training.
Yeah.
Acts like a toddler.
It's a shame that Christy Nome wasn't around. She would have been able to get rid of it for you really fast. So,
yes, we talked about it last week, didn't we? But
yeah, we did indeed. If you listen to last week's show, you'll know all about that. In fact, if you did listen to last week's show, you'll also know that Wencee and I talked about a little bit about Keating and Howard on the capital gains tax discount and the difference between the negative gearing and why our housing industry and their policy and the whole crisis that we have of people renting and, you know, house prices being so high, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So as I am one to do, I did a little bit of homework on that. And do you have your homework, Sting? I'm just getting that ready as we speak. As we speak, I am getting that ready. So I found out the capital gains tax discount and the policy on negative gearing was introduced by Keating and Howard, and the negative gearing was introduced in 1987 by Paul Keating during the Hawke government, and it had been temporarily abolished in 1985, but it was reinstated due to its perceived negative impact on the rental market. I'm not sure how they got that perception, but anyway.
Was it that the rents weren't going up high enough? Was that the negative perception?
Yes, maybe exactly right. But the supercharging of the negative gearing was the capital gains tax discount, which meant that anyone with lots of coin and lots of assets and their property went through the roof, when they got a capital gain on that asset and they owned it for over 12 months, instead of having to pay like a decent amount of tax, they only had to pay tax on 50% of the profit of the capital gain. That was brought in by John Howard, and that supercharged the housing industry, and especially the people with a lot of money. Because it meant, because it means that obviously you're making this big asset, you made this massive capital gain, but you only have to pay 50% you don't have to pay 50% on the 50%. You only have to pay your tax rate of the 50%. So it means that the whole 50% and maybe 60 odd percent to another 50% of the 50% is still tax free, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and that if you're, back then, if you're selling something for $1 million, or maybe you bought it for, I don't know, 600 grand or whatever it is, you only have to pay tax on 260 grand,
200,000
or something. Yeah. So you're making a nice wad, and you can obviously use that wad to invest in your next property.
Yep.
But as usual, these things for the the top end of town, if you like, because
exactly.
As Howard used to like to say at the time, mum and dad investors, which to be honest isn't that many, and even if there is, they're not huge investors; they're small investors. So it's just all bullshit. But anyway, I thought I would just bring that up and just get that cleared up. And talking about getting things cleared up, absolutely no problems whatsoever. What is this comet shard blaze across the Spanish and Portuguese night skies? Wencee, enlighten us.
Enlighten you? Oh, I will definitely enlighten you, because you will see the enlightening. It's been rather space-related news events over the last 3 or 4 weeks.
It really has. And just before we go any further, if you listened or haven't listened to last week's show, I just realized that this week's show, I believe, is episode 166, I think. But we wouldn't know because we don't have the episode number in our title.
Oh, no. We normally put it in the ticker tape.
Oh, right. Okay. Beautiful.
Yeah, so that's when it normally goes. Yes.
Beautiful. So last week was episode 165. And if you get on to episode 165, you will hear a fantastic part of Science last week that Wencee was talking about the Aurora Australis and Borealis and explaining what a CME is, etc., etc. So if you're really interested in that, as a half-assed history person would say, get across it. Episode 165.
Yes. And have a look at the show notes. I added extra stuff there to look at more details about what happened that weekend, and also how to track and get alerts for future aurora events in Australia. So what I didn't realize at the time, and I did some more investigations after the show, there's a K value that determines how far away from the poles you can actually see an aurora. So K1, 2, and 3 normally close to the pole, so Tasmania, Victoria. As you go higher in the number, so K8 and K9, you can almost see them in the subtropics or tropics. So that weekend of May 10, 11, 12, the reason why we saw them up here in Queensland was because the value K got up to 9, which is almost one of the highest numbers. So it was very active. That's why that was such a big deal. So, yeah.
Right. Wow.
But it's in the show notes. You can subscribe to it. It's all from the Bureau of Meteorology. And, yeah, it's all safe to subscribe and get alerts from there. So, yeah, definitely worth doing.
Beautiful stuff, Wencee. Really good. No show notes. Meticulous. Very good. Very good.
Exactly. Thank you. But on to this week's space-related news.
Yes.
Over the weekend, there was a bright sky or an object that lit up the sky in Portugal, parts of Portugal and Spain. And I'm just going to quickly show you a video. Let me just start that from the beginning. So it starts. Okay, here we go. So it's like a meteor, but it was a lot brighter. It's what they call a fireball, like it says here in the video. So a fireball streaked across the sky over Spain. This is on May 18, and Portugal. So these are all home videos, security cameras that we can see.
Wow.
So it depends on what part of the countries you were. It was either high or low in the sky.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, so the ESA, which is the European Space Agency, equivalent, similar to NASA, I believe it was a Comet pieces of Comet that entered the atmosphere, traveling at up to 100,000 kilometers per hour. So really, really fast, which is why it just lit up the sky so much. The object would have been just probably a few centimeters in size, tens of centimeters potentially, and because it tracked across the sky, the atmosphere just burns it up, and I believe it headed out in the direction of the Atlantic Ocean, so it didn't land on land or anywhere like that, but it was quite spectacular. I've got some more videos actually. See if I can bring the next one up. Oh, this one's a good one.
It was pretty spectacular. So how many millions of people do you believe get the opportunity to see this?
It's pretty rare, and you need to be the right spot, the right time to see it, because it's only short. Yeah, you wouldn't be able to see it all across the country. It'll be quite localized. So let me just play this one. So it would have been a few million perhaps, because Portugal and Spain are quite densely populated.
Right.
So here's another video. So this is at some sort of festival or gathering. It's going right over their heads.
I know, that's unbelievable.
Some people thought the colour was blue. Others were calling it green. This lady, look at her reaction if they show it on this one.
Oh, that's just nuts. That is crazy.
Yes, it only lasted a few seconds as it travelled across the sky.
I imagine the absolute wackos would be just going nuts over it, in that it means something.
Yeah, it's probably climate change or some alien or some other conspiracy theory.
That's what I was thinking. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Or people might even be thinking that it could be related to like a war or something, potentially, like a missile, because it could be triggering for some. But yeah, I thought that's quite interesting. Just came across that story in the last day or two and thought, oh, wow, another space-related news for this week.
Well, this is space-related in that this used to be inner space, which is Gina Rinehart was trying to remove her painting from, I think it's Vincent Namatjira. I think it is. Vincent Namatjira's. Yep. The NGA of Australia's richest woman has been seen by millions around the world, appearing on CNN and BBC and getting the attention of Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Fallon. Now, you would think normally I would have something from Jimmy Fallon or Stephen Colbert on this, but I do not. I have been remiss, and no, I've got some other stuff, but I don't have that, unfortunately. So what I will say is that, last week she was trying to get her painting back. She didn't like it very much, apparently. And this is called the Streisand effect, because in 2003, Barbara Streisand launched a lawsuit to try to remove an aerial photo from her California beach house from an online collection. And all that happened was she tried to suppress the image, and it led to almost 500,000 people visiting the Pictopia site to view the photo within a month. That's the thing, seriously, just be careful what you wish for. So this is a similar thing that's happened. So what I'll do, I'll just pop this up. In the last couple of days, since, what is it? 12 o'clock Monday. So we're only Tuesday.
So 24 hours are just over. Since last week. This is last week. So this is Monday last week to Sunday. So you have a look at Monday, then you'll see what happens. I'll show you the stat. It's pretty good. Give me a second. I need to share this, don't I? My brain has gone to sleep. Right. Okay. There we go.
So you can see at the start is when they were searching for Gina Rinehart, and then when all this kerfuffle started, you can see, and now it's just dissipated again. But it just gives you the beautiful impetus of just be careful what you wish for. So
more people saw it now than before she aired out her grievances against it. So she should have just kept quiet.
Absolutely, she should have. And the top 10 countries that are searching for her: Australia, New Zealand, Austria, Ireland, Malaysia, Slovenia, UK, Philippines, Switzerland, Singapore. Interesting, the US is not in the top 10.
Wow. So, how bizarre. Is that because we've got many Australians in those countries and they were curious? Or was it a general interest?
It is bizarre because the New York Post has a tweet here. And the New York Post is quite a right-leaning paper. I think it's owned by Murdoch.
New York Post? New York Post.
So, it's interesting. Yeah, no, not the Times.
I was thinking of the Times.
The Hiddleston Times. Yeah, no. The Hiddleston Times in the South China Morning Post followed suit with coverage on 17th of May. So it's in the Time in sorry, not in the Time magazine. I think it's in. Oh, here it is. A Time magazine headline summed perfectly. Just a day after Rinehart's demand, an Australian billionaire tried to suppress an Aboriginal artist's unflattering portrait of her. It's only drawn more attention. So, I mean, she is a horrible person, and her father was an outright racist. So, she's a shocker, and she funded the No campaign hardcore. So, I hope everything that happens to her keeps happening to her. It's such a hope. So,
and it's I think she's got a dislike to the portrait, but have you seen the full painting or drawing by Vincent? And it includes other notable stars.
So I've got a little bit of a picture here. I mean, none of them are particularly flattering. So
no, they're not. So she can't complain in that respect.
I mean, even himself, he's painted himself not particularly flattering,
Yeah.
So I think that's ScoMo down there, and you got Ned Kelly and Vincent Lingari. I mean, talk about whinge. I mean, seriously, there's so many that are pretty rank, and I mean,
Yeah.
obviously that's the charm of the painting sort of thing. And
Yeah, exactly.
the whole thing about art is that you're allowed to dislike it. There's no problems, but you can't just cancel it because you feel like you want to. It's just not the way it works.
And it's no different to comics, cartoonists, who depict political and public figures in weird and wonderful ways.
I don't have any problems with that at all. Although I do think some of the Australian cartoons I've seen in the past were bordering on dead set racist undertones. They're pretty,
we do get that sometimes.
Pretty low barrel sort of shit coming out of the Australian or anything that Murdoch owns, basically. So, pretty terrible. And talking, just being on the terrible theme, should we be eating salmon from Tasmania? No, we absolutely should not. Why should we not? I will explain to you why we should. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you exactly why. So the way that they farm the Tasmanian salmon is not sustainable in an eco-friendly way. It's sustainable in the fact that obviously they're farming them and they're not in the ocean as such, but because it's so compact where they've got all the salmon and where they have all the cages, it's leading to a lot of hypertoxic water and conditions for underneath the salmon actually is. And as you can imagine, it means all the seagrasses and all the corals and even the species around there that were there before the salmon was being farmed. And one of the big ones, and this is a massive one, is it's called the Maugean skate. And the Maugean skate has been around for something like 60 million years, apparently. It's like one of our living fossils, if you like. And it's only taken 10 years of salmon farming in Tasmania for that Maugean skate to now be on the extinct list.
Wow. That's terrible.
It is. It's absolutely disgraceful. And every time anyone buys smoked salmon from Tasmania, me included, and that's why I'm completely just stopping now. And I absolutely highly hope that people that listen to this will do their own research, not just listen to us, but we'll have stuff in the show notes. But yeah, do your own research and stop eating it as well, because every time we eat it, we adding to the coffers of these people down there. Now, there's been quite a few bits of information from Albo that is incorrect in that there's 5,000 jobs in salmon farming down there, and there's a heap more jobs indirectly. There's actually been a report come out from Tasmania on the people that actually work in the industry. There's less than 2,000 people actually work in the industry, and there's only about 100 jobs indirectly outside of that are affected. So,
what? A politician bending the truth? Never. I've never heard that before.
Absolutely. So the farm salmon are often fed. This is the thing that you will find so hard to believe, but the farm salmon are often fed fish meal and oil derived from wild-caught fish, exacerbating overfishing and depleting wild fish stocks. And the reliance on wild fish for feed affects the broader marine ecosystem, disrupts ecological balance. Even worse than that, some of the feed that they feed the salmon has chicken in it.
Oh, what?
Apparently, there is more fat, chicken fat, in salmon than there is some chicken.
Wow, that's amazing. So they're just feeding them the wrong meals just to pump them up in size and bulk to sell it for more expensive.
Absolutely, but it just gets worse because the people that actually own it, I think there's a company called Petuna. I think it's Petuna or Petona or something. They're meant to be a New Zealand company, but that New Zealand company is half owned by another company, and that company is pretty dodgy. And there are some owners of some of those salmon companies in Tasmania. I think Tassel being one of them. I think
Tassel's one. Yep.
Yeah. That some of the owners of the parent companies that own the bigger, broader part have been involved in lawsuits overseas from dodgy processes, different corrupt activities, and just things ecologically toxic that they've been a part
not
of.
surprised.
And so the idea is that, they put some money into this sort of stuff so they look like they're doing a good thing. But again, you as we've always said, you've got to do your own research. You've got to look behind the veil. You can't just believe everything you just fed. You do definitely need to do your own research. Don't listen to Channel 7. Don't listen to Channel 9. Don't listen to Channel 10.
Yeah. A lot of the salmon companies and fisheries are all big names actually aren't even Australian. Most of them are multinationals, so most of the money ends up leaving this country. And like you said, their ethics and environmental stance is very low and poor. They treat people poorly in their company and things like that. So yeah, the question is, where do you find good ethical fish that is easily sourced, not too expensive?
It's such a great question. It's such a good question. And I bought some smoked salmon the other week, and I had a really good look at it, and I went, okay, it's coming from, I think it was coming from Denmark.
Oh, okay.
And then I sort of, did a bit of research on sort of how they do their salmon farming in Denmark, et cetera, and it sounded far more sustainable, et cetera. But believe me, it was actually coming from a Woolworth brand.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
So, as you know, I don't like to do that either. But but again, you're looking at greenhouse gases, aren't you? Getting the product over here. So
the food miles
and the carbon footprint. Yeah, blah blah blah.
It's so hard to do things in the right way, environmental, ethical, morally, all these things that we're trying to be better. It's just so hard and expensive if you do find the right product.
Yeah, look, it definitely is. There's no doubt about it. But at the end of the day, to a certain extent, we don't have a choice.
Yeah.
So, but I think with that, we've got a lot to get on with. So I think we might do that. So I'm just going to pop this up, and we might go quickly to a break, and then we will be back with Party in the USA.
Whew.
When you give blood, you're more than just a blood donor. You're the lifeblood of Australia. Search Give Blood and book your donation with Australian Red Cross Lifeblood today. Give life. Give blood.
God, nothing hurts my soul more than getting a bunch of money from paid sponsorship. Cash for comment. I love it. Speaking of cash, have you tried the new Cash app? Send and receive money from anyone instantly with the Cash app. Oh, God. Say you want to get $10,000 from Valvoline just for mentioning the word Valvoline. Just give them your Cash app username and they can send it to you immediately. No questions asked. Download the Cash app today. Valvoline.
Oh, that's a very short sting. Okay. I will get started on this one. This week, or on this segment, I'm going to be talking about a new law that's coming into effect very soon in California, in the Golden State
California.
of the USA.
Beautiful. Excellent.
Back in September 26, 2023, a new gun control measure was introduced by the Governor, Gavin Newsom, which allowed, this law that passed will introduce an 11% state excise tax on all guns, ammunition, and gun parts sold by any licensed dealer in that state. And it comes into effect on the 1st of July this year. So just over a little over a month. Yeah, so
he's got an election soon, I think. I can't remember.
Oh, do they? Yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't know, but yeah, I'm just thinking how many happy gunners would there be? I'm not sure.
Exactly. Yeah, so 11% excise tax might be one of the first ones in the country to introduce a similar tax. There's taxes on tobacco and alcohol. This is the last one that that hadn't been taxed. So there's a thing called the ATG, so alcohol, tobacco, guns.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like a group. They're the three things that considerably affect the lives of people in America, and they can all do harm and cost the country and the state money. So alcohol, there's taxes on that because this taxes allegedly, supposedly, supposed to be used to provide healthcare and things like that for alcohol-related disease and deaths. Same for tobacco. So one for guns has not been introduced. So hence why this got tabled, and I'm glad it got passed. So that's the purpose. They're estimating about $160 million annually will be raised as a result of that. So obviously the price of guns and ammunition and parts will go up. The other benefit will hopefully be that the sale of guns and ammo and parts will diminish as a result, similar to when taxes on alcohol and tobacco here in Australia, when they go up, you see a decrease in sales. So hopefully they'll have the same effect over there. Public schools also benefit with safety measures that will be introduced and infrastructure improvements as a result of that extra money coming in. Obviously, there are critics, people complaining about infringing on their Second Amendment rights and things like that. The state's also going to have to micro-stamp all handgun cartridges to aid tracing of guns used in crimes. So there's a raft of legislation and things that are going to be introduced. So quite important things happening. So exemptions, there are some exemptions to the law. One of those being active or retired law enforcement officers are exempt if they're purchasing any of those items from a registered gun dealer. Also, the tax doesn't apply to law enforcement agencies that employ those officers. So there are small exemptions there. The other exemption is that if a gun dealer sells less than $5,000 per quarter in gross sales, they're exempt from charging that tax. So I'm guessing there might be some gun dealers that might be cooking their books to be able to not sell with a tax. I'm just being cynical here, but
yeah, look, I think the cynicism is warranted. The other thing is that it sounds like with that amount of work, are they putting a whole bunch of money into create a new agency to do this sort of stuff? I mean, if you're micro stamping cartridges, Jesus, you're going to need some resources to do that, I would have thought.
Yeah, for sure. And I can only imagine that the revenue raised by that will fund those extra people that to be able to support this bill and things like that. So 160 million isn't small change.
No, it's not. But I think there's about 50 odd million people in California. It's twice the size of Australia population wise.
It's a big state, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a massive state in itself geographically as well. Apparently, California, I believe, is if you put it in the world's economies, like with all the other economies, I think it's like in the top 10.
Wouldn't surprise me. It's got two of the biggest economies that are quite important. You've got Hollywood, so movie making business and entertainment. You've got the tech sector in San Francisco, Silicon Valley, and all that stuff. Absolutely. Heaps of revenue coming into
it could even be top 5. I'm not sure.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Absolutely, with that revenue side of things, and also the stocks in the IT side of things as well. So not
That's right.
just the IT side of things, but the actual investment in IT, i.e. the stocks side as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Awesome.
so I thought that was quite interesting.
Very much so. Very much so. Yeah, we'll
So I
have
want to keep an eye on that one to see
Yeah.
how it comes along, and see what comes of it with all the school programs and other incentives to dissuade people from using guns and things like that. So also I read somewhere that when there's a decrease in gun sales in one state, because along the Mexico-US border, there's 4 states. And in the past, when gun sales have gone down in one state, the imports of those guns into Mexico has reduced as well. So there's massive cross-border trade of American guns going into Mexico to whatever reason, legal or illegal. I'm guessing illegal in most cases. So I thought that was quite interesting that, I think 40 or 60% of guns in Mexico come from America.
Yeah, that will be very interesting, especially if they're getting guns that are have their cartridges micro stamped, etc. And maybe the thieves who get their hands on the guns don't know that.
Yeah, exactly.
So I agree with you totally. Actually, that it's definitely worth something. Definitely something worth keeping an eye on. No doubt about it.
Oh, so, the other thing I forgot to mention was that they'll be tightening guns crossing borders within America, so from neighboring states, because I think Nevada's next door neighbor to California, their laws are a lot more relaxed. No taxes.
So doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, exactly. Nevada's so there's a fear that yeah, exactly. There's fears that guns will come from Nevada into California, so there'll be extra patrols, I guess, or people being vigilant.
It definitely looks like they're going to have to spend a bit of money on resources for sure to police this stuff. There's no doubt about it. But good on them for having a crack to do so.
Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunately, in other places, not in California, this is in Georgia, in Atlanta, Georgia. Sorry, not in Atlanta, but in Georgia. This is the sort of person that represents the 14th district of Georgia, and she very much does like guns.
Yeah, great.
Let me get there.
Joe Biden to abandon Americans in Afghanistan. Got 13 of our best soldiers killed. Gave a kill list of Americans to the Taliban, and armed an Islamic terrorist nation with $83 billion in weapons like this one. Biden should be impeached. Now I'm doing a gun giveaway of my own, but for Americans only. I want you to win this .50 caliber rifle that Democrats will ban if they keep the House next year. While Joe Biden broke America's pledge to never leave a man behind, Nancy Pelosi is sneaking the Green New Deal into the $3.5 trillion budget. And in 2022, I'm going to blow away the Democrat socialist agenda.
For those listening on the podcast, that was a car with socialism, and this lady's just blown it up.
Yes, it was indeed, Wencee. Nicely described.
Go to the website below and sign up to win my 50 caliber gun for Joe Biden.
Wow. That's who we're dealing with. An absolute and utter total 100% nutbag. Now, I thought it was worth explaining a little bit who Marjorie Taylor Greene is, because people will maybe hear her name at times and not realize who it is, and go, she sounds like a bit of a hard ass, and she's standing up for her rights and all the rest of why people are having a crack at her, etc. Well, there's a couple of reasons that people are having a crack at her, and I thought I might just explain. So, for starters, I'll say this is some of the wackiest shit that she has said. Now, this is actually verbatim. I'm not making this up. As it says, Jewish space lasers, pew, pew, on my title tonight, she suggested that the wildfires in California might have been caused by space lasers controlled by a prominent Jewish family, the Rothschilds, to clear land for high-speed rail project. That is verbatim. She actually said that. I know it's hard to believe a person with a brain said that, but she did. And unfortunately, this person with a brain is in the Congress of America, believe it or not. She has her hands not that far away from power.
Wow. And imagine if Trump comes in.
Well, absolutely. She will just be licking his boots and whatever else she can get her face on. But she has promoted the QAnon conspiracy theory, which claims that cabal of Satan-worshipping pedophiles runs a global child sex trafficking ring being battled by Donald Trump, apparently.
Of course.
But, forget about all the gender abuse that Trump has been alleged to have done. And all the abuse that he alleged to have done in his Miss Universe contest and all the rest of it. Don't even get me started. She's also insinuated that 9/11 attacks were an inside job. Of course. No evidence that a plane crashed into the Pentagon, although we've actually seen it happen so many freaking times. She called the 2018 Parkland school shooting a false flag operation, implying that it was staged to push gun control laws. 2018 Parkland school shooting, I think there was at least 10 children or 10 teenagers that died in that. So it's pretty horrible stuff. So I won't go through all of them. I've got 10. I've taken 10, but she also said she spread false information about COVID-19, including claims that vaccines do not reduce the spread of virus and that the pandemic was a hoax used for political purposes. Oh, yeah, she's a bright cookie.
Jeez, she's a piece of work.
Oh, she is. And just one of the last two, she's complained that Black Lives Matter movement, Antifa, that doesn't exist, by the way, are domestic terrorists and compared them to the Ku Klux Klan.
Wow. What a nut job.
Sure. Yeah, well, I was going to say, I'm not sure if she knows who they are, but I'll go through that in a minute and you'll find out. She definitely knows who they are. Martial law to keep Trump in power. So Greene reportedly suggested that the then president, Trump, to declare martial law, i.e. dictator status, to take over the army, etc., to stay in power after losing the 2020 presidential election. Yes, she is 100% nutbag. And I imagine if you knew that she was that much of a nutbag, what would be one of the first questions you would ask me? If she's representing an electorate?
I don't know. Maybe
why
something
do people
about
keep voting for her?
What's that?
Why do people keep voting for her?
Yeah, maybe.
Would that be a good question?
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you why. The reason is, in her area, there's 700,000 people. Now, I'm going to just let you do the math. In percentage, how much do you reckon white would be in that electorate?
As in the residents who are white?
Yeah.
In a percentage, and what state is she in?
Well, she's in Georgia.
Okay.
Georgia's got some pretty red bits of Georgia. There was lots of red bits of Georgia that Trump won easily.
I reckon about 90%.
Well, you're pretty close. 80 to 85.
Wow. It's a big proportion.
It is. It's not what you call multicultural. With smaller percentages of African American, Hispanic, and Latino, it's only about 5 to 10% apparently. And their wages apparently, on average, are lower than most other electorates in the country. They have lower education across the electorate than most places in the country. None of this is, I mean, they're putting her in Congress, so it makes a lot of sense. It's not like this is new, it makes complete sense when you when you sort of break it down. And the socioeconomic characteristics, well, we talked about that before, but so they support Trump, mostly this area, which makes sense why they keep putting her back in. Significant backing for Donald Trump, alignment with the Make America Great Again movement, and priorities including economic development, job security, healthcare access, rural issues like agriculture and healthcare. What they haven't mentioned here as much, and I'm surprised, is an absolute and utter love of guns.
As we could tell by that video that you showed.
Yes, absolutely. They love guns in their area, and they're Christian loving and all this other sort of crap. So what I thought I might do, just now we've seen what a whack job she actually is, have a little bit of an idea. Now, believe it or not, she did actually go to university. She did get a business degree, but that means, as you know, absolutely nothing. There's lots of people that didn't get a business degree that aren't a nutbag, and there's many that are. So she is one of those. She worked in her father's construction business when she was younger. And then eventually she got invested in CrossFit, and then she invested in CrossFit.
Right. Okay.
And then I believe that went down the toilet not that long ago, which hopefully her political career will do very soon. But she's known for a combative style, controversial statements, supported Trump, objected the 2020 election results, etc., etc. One of the most controversial things she did was when she was elected and Biden won the election, one of the first times she turned up in the Congress, she had a mask on that said Trump won.
Oh, geez. Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Oh, yeah. So
I don't remember seeing that, but then I'm glad they didn't show it too much around the world.
Yeah. So she made headlines for statements about QAnon, gun control, COVID-19, blah, blah, blah. A couple of interesting things. She was married to a dude in 1995 and had 3 children starting in 1998. And just recently I read that she is now divorced, I believe, because she's had extramarital affairs outside the. I mean, this is pure of the
She's
driven
all class,
snow.
isn't she?
Yeah, she is. She's absolutely all class. She is absolutely, you're spot on. Promoted QAnon narratives and contributed to a political blog spreading controversial theories, etc., etc. She's actually been dead against funding Ukraine because she doesn't really understand how it works.
Right.
Because,
the funding or how Ukraine works?
Well, neither, really. She doesn't really understand any of it, to be honest. She thinks she does, but she doesn't. She talks a big game, but she has no idea what she's saying behind it. So the fact is that the best thing for America is to fund the Ukraine, because if Putin gets in, what's going to happen is that if he's able to invade Ukraine and then be able to take over, then he'll want to take over something that's near a NATO country. And if he takes over a NATO country, then the Americans have to get involved because they're so much part of NATO, and then they'll start having troops over there. And then everything that idiot MTG didn't want to happen, like her son, has to go over there and fight a war because he'll be one of the dumbest guys. So he'll have to, because that's what they normally do, get the dumbest guys to fight the war. Yeah, absolutely.
That's right.
So the smartest thing she could do is fund Ukraine so that doesn't happen. But she's too dumb to work that out, unfortunately. So, as I say, business degree doesn't teach you that. So she is pretty much the voice of MAGA. And, she's an absolute 100% shocker. And she was completely instrumental in changing the laws in the Congress last year, I think it was, so that the rules are for, I don't know if it's for all speakers or just Republican speaker. I can't remember. I think it's just Republican speaker, but don't quote me on that. That they only need one dissenter who can make a motion to spill the Speaker of the House.
Right,
whereas they used to have quite a few more than that. I think it was, I don't know, they needed a quorum or they needed a majority or something. But now they only need one.
Right.
And since then, it took them 15 rounds to get their first speaker, which is I think that's the first time ever that's ever happened in Congress.
What was that guy's name? Mike Johnson or something?
No, Kevin McCarthy.
Kevin McCarthy. Jeez, nowhere near it.
No, but Mike Johnson's who they have now.
That's where I'm getting confused. Right. Yep.
Yeah. And he is an election denier.
Mm-hmm. Aren't they all on that side?
Well, there's not all of them, but he
true.
is. And he's also a two-faced.
Hey, Laura.
Hey, Laura. How you going?
Welcome back.
Yes, welcome back. And so he's been down. He's been down at Orange Head's trial, doing all the gag talking that Orange Head can't do.
Mm-hmm.
So, as you know, he's gagged from the trial, so he can't dissent from that gag because he will be contempt of court, and then he'll go to jail, basically. So he had the brilliant idea that he could bring.
That's what we all want, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, yes, it is what you and I definitely want. But believe it or not, there's many people that don't want that. So yeah,
true.
Interesting. It's pretty interesting. But anyway, so I think just so you have a bit of an idea, of who MTG actually is, and I do apologize. Yeah, I do apologize. You actually know now. But now you do know, you can go anytime you hear that nutbag, you can go, oh, I know who that is. I'll turn this off now.
And then let your Tourette's kick in and you can start swearing at the screen or TV, whatever it is you're listening to.
That's exactly right. But we're doing pretty well for time tonight,
Awesome.
Wencee, so I think we'll keep that going.
Hey, this is Hannah Melville Ray from the Australia Institute. I'm listening to the new Blurt with Wencee and the Kegsta, and you should be too. It's on Tuesday nights, live from around 8 p.m.
Hi, it's Ashley Fizame here, and you're listening to the new Blurt with Wencee and Kegsta.
Yes, it's not a long one, that one.
No, it isn't.
You're listening to the new Blurt with Wencee and the Kegsta. Next up, do yourself a favour.
Yeah, so this is definitely one of my favourite segments on the show because of the fact that Wencee and I are massive podcast heads, and I think me even more than Wencee, but I don't want to
way more
words into Wencee's head. But yeah, no, I've got a few, and there's one tonight. I've got a nice little start before we get going. So this one's called Spies in the Outback, and it's actually, if you look up Spies in the Outback in your podcast app, you won't find it. You need to look up Expanse, Expanse. And if you look up Expanse, they have a whole bunch of different series that they will do. And this is one of the series. And it's interesting because if you listen to episode, get across it, 165, last week, Wencee did reference Pine Gap.
Right. Is that what this one's about?
Yes, that's exactly what this is about, and it is a cracker. It's really, really good. I highly recommend it. Really easy to listen to. Only 30-minute bit, and you can watch it as well. So there's really good videos on it as well if you want to watch it on YouTube. Yep. So this is actually a little video. I'm only going to play the first couple of minutes of it, but you'll get a bit of a feel for what it's about, and then I'll give you a little bit of a synopsis afterwards. So this is Spies in the Outback.
Oh, that's
right. We're going to try and.
Yes, it was.
This is such beautiful country. When I first rolled into Alice Springs and Buntua, I was surprised by the hills. My outback Australian town is nestled in ranges that fold and stretch out to the east and west. There are so many natives, sennas and mulga trees. The air is dry, there's a light breeze, and the sky is endlessly blue. I love walking the trails, but this is one ridgeline I've never climbed before, because I'm worried that even being here might get me arrested.
Is this a sort of narration that
there's a secret place.
All the
You can
episodes?
only it's hidden in a valley.
But she talks to different people.
Now we're just sort of on this
all the
classic Central Australian sideways rock.
She's a local from memory.
Yes, she is. You're right.
So we'll head up here.
Gunshots puncture the silence from the rifle range nearby.
Anyone watching, that's Pine Gap in the background.
And there it is.
Which I showed from the air last week's episode.
Absolutely. And what I was surprised to realise was that it actually has been there since the 1960s. I didn't realise it had gone that far back.
Yeah. Back in the Cold War days.
Yeah.
Like oversized golf balls.
So I'm gonna
from the desert floor.
Gonna hold it there.
On what's known locally as Pine Gap, or
that will be enough.
The base.
We'll just come back. So it gives you a little bit of a teaser for. As I said, you can watch that on the on YouTube without a problem, and or you can get it on the on your podcast app as well. If you want a little bit of a synopsis of sort of what it's about, I would say, if you just give me a second here, it's basically travels back to tense atmospheres of World War II, Cold War periods when espionage thrived and the outback became an unlikely theatre of intrigue and deception. As I said, this thing is back in the 60s, and when you were growing up and I was growing up in the 80s, it really was that Cold War feel. I mean, I don't know about you, but I know when I used to go to primary school or whatever, I was like, I wonder if we'll be here next week. It really, it was that.
I think I was too naive to think that at that age. I was thinking,
well,
my view of the world was very small.
I was a couple of years older than you, though, and I think that means that you might have been like 9 when I was 12. And in those days, that's actually quite a big gap.
Yeah, I guess.
9 to 12. So I probably, I might have been feeling a bit more. And plus, my parents have always been very politically savvy. So we probably talked about it, or they would have, and I would have heard it or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty amazing. And that she meets, that was Alex Barwick. She's the host of the show. She meets spies, foreign and homegrown, etc., and agents whose clandestine activities and exploits leave a mark on the landscape, etc. And you hear like heaps of different things about espionage missions and intelligence gathering and sort of the money that was made at Pine Gap and etc. And the thing that I really sort of took away from it, one of the things was the real controversy about Gough Whitlam at the time, because one of the things was when Gough Whitlam came in, I think it was 1975 or 3, I can't remember when he came in, but
around that time.
Around that time, he said, I want to know what's going on at Pine Gap. And they didn't want to tell him, i.e. the CIA.
Yeah,
and
not surprised.
Before you knew it, he was dismissed by the Governor General of the day. Now, I'm not putting conspiracy theories out there at all. But that
you heard it first. There's new controversy.
Yeah. Well, you didn't hear it first, but you did hear it. But you didn't hear it first. But if you listen to the podcast, you'll also hear that the Minister for Defence in the 80s, Kim Beazley, is a staunch advocate that is not the case at all.
Right, okay.
And he is absolutely against that. And his dad, I believe, was very much entrenched in the government of the day when that was happening. And so they used to have like full-on dinner table conversations regarding that when he was younger. So I suppose he had.
No wonder he's supportive of it.
Yeah, well, supportive of it not being the case. Yeah, absolutely. So but no, it's brilliant. I think there's 5 episodes. It's really easy. I think I'm on the 5th one now. I highly recommend it. It's a really good one. Blurtstars probably give it about 4.2. It's
Nice.
not the most favorite podcast I've ever listened to, but it's definitely up there, and it's well worth listening to. So
Still a good score.
Yeah. No, it's well worth it. No, it's very good. It's very good, and it just dovetails nicely on your Pine Gap experience last week.
When I was in Alice Springs, and I did listen to part of the first episode of that one last week because I think we spoke about it, and I went looking for it. And it reminded me of a story that the pilot also mentioned when we went up in the air, and also other locals, that when you're in Alice Springs, you'll hear a lot of American accents. And quite often they'll say, "Oh, they're cleaners or gardeners and things like that." When in fact, you can pretty much guarantee that that's not their real job. They're actually working at Pine Gap. So,
absolutely.
I would never have thought of that if I just went through Alice Springs. But now that I know that, I go, "Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense."
and as I was talking about last week too, there is a brilliant show. I don't know if you can still see it, but it was on iView a few years ago. A fantastic series about Pine Gap, and as I say, Stephen Curry was in it, and I can only imagine that it is a perception with all the information that they have of what is happening, because I wouldn't have thought it was firsthand. But it's interesting. There's a lot of SCOTUS and stuff like that talked, and to be honest with you, that was one of the first time. Because I think SCOTUS is Supreme Supreme Court
of the US or something.
Yeah, Supreme of the whatever it is. Supreme Court of the US of A or whatever. And POTUS is the president of the US. Well, I never knew what POTUS was, and they're going, POTUS. And I'm like,
you don't remember the band from the 80s or 90s, POTUS, Presidents of the United States?
No, I just remember
peaches from me.
No, I know the song. I know the song really
song?
well. Yeah. I just never called them POTUS. I always called them President of the USA.
Yeah, there you go.
But POTUS. Oh well, I didn't quite get that. But there you go. So anyway, I highly recommend it. And do yourself a favor, get out there and have a.
I will get back to listening to that one and listen to the whole series. Excellent. Thank you for that. The one I'm going to review today is one that I've been listening to for a few months now. It's been going on they're up to their 6th season. So it started in 2019. And when I came across this one, I think I listened to one of the new ones and I thought, you know what, I'm going to go way back and started listening from the very beginning. The one that this podcast is called The Happiness Lab with Dr. Laurie Santos. She's an actual psychology lecturer at Yale University in the US, and she's designed a course that has become the most popular course taken by any Yale University student in 300 years, with so approximately 25% of the university cohort have taken this course. She's been running it for a few years. She uses research and science-based evidence on the whys and hows of happiness and what makes us happy, and goes into heaps of details. She'll have a lot of guests on, not so you wouldn't probably recognize any of them, but a lot of guests that either she's worked with or people who work in that field of psychology and things like that. She'll have other sports people to talk about their experiences, or military people who have gone through war and conflict and how they came out of that damage, but then how they overcome that and lead a happy life and things like that.
This is out of the Pushkin industry.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I think you reviewed a Pushkin some time ago as well.
Yeah, I think Cautionary Tales. It's Cautionary Tales. Yeah, that's and that's a Malcolm Gladwell stable.
That's right. Yeah. So this one, she goes through findings that about happiness, some of the misconceptions, things like the more money you have, the happier you are, and she has special guests that talk about that. So you might win the lottery, for example, and yes, it'll give you happiness for a while, but when she spoke to one person, that happiness didn't last long, and it quickly faded and goes through all the details. So I don't want to give it away too much because it's better to listen from the person who's telling that story. So
absolutely.
And things like that. So it's quite uplifting. Sometimes you go, oh, I've gone through that, or oh, if I did go through that, I think I know how to combat that feeling or that thought or things like that. So there's acts of kindness that people do on a daily basis to make themselves happy. So they might help the old lady cross the street, for example, as a cliche, and things like that. So the more you listen to it, you get to hear a lot of different scenarios that have made people happier than they would have if they didn't do it. Could be exercise, could be mindful meditation, things like that. So definitely worth a listen. I started listening from the beginning, like I said earlier, and there's 6 seasons of it. I've only just got to the beginning of 2020, so COVID. So during the early COVID months, she had special episodes where she delved into, what's going to happen now that we're all isolated? Zoom's come in and video conferencing. How's that going to affect you? How can you combat what you used to do socially and in person? How do you do it now in the COVID world? So reliving all that COVID stuff 4 years later is a bit weird now. I thought that was quite a different perspective now that we've lived it, experienced it, survived it. So definitely worth a listen. So I'm going to keep going until I get to the current seasons. So current episodes usually around 20 to 30 minutes on a general as a general rule. Oh, thanks, Laura. You're going to listen to it. Fantastic.
It is a cracker. I've listened to the Happiness Lab before. It's an absolute beauty. And if you like the Happiness Lab, you want to check out the Imperfects as well.
Yeah, definitely worth a listen. I think you've reviewed that one. I think, yeah. So, and the other thing I want to mention before I give this a rating, she does have a free course that runs over several hours for teenagers on the science of well-being for teens. So in a recent survey, she did 37% of teens say they have poor mental health, and this course can help you, those teenagers, work out what's good, what's bad, and things like that. So it's definitely worth a listen if you've got teenage kids, or if you know anyone who's a teenager, or even if you want to listen to yourself. It might even help you, give you some extra tips. But I'll put that in the show notes as well as the podcast. But yeah, definitely worth a listen or watch it on YouTube. As to a rating of Blurtstars, I would give this probably a 4.7 out of 5.
Nice.
Blurtstars.
Very good.
Because that's quite often, I'll listen to it and I'll just listen 2 or 3, 4 in a row. Yeah, so definitely worth the watch.
You've got me back on it.
Excellent.
I've had it down. I've listened to a few. I agree, it's pretty good. It is pretty good. I've just got so many.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll have to put it back in.
Definitely.
Yeah. Beautiful. So did you have a little bit you were going to play?
Oh, yes, that's right. Thank you. Thanks for the reminder. Here's one titled "Don't Think of the White Bear."
Okay.
I'll just play the first minute or two.
Lovely.
Hope you can hear that.
No, not at the moment.
Hang on a sec. Helps if I put it into focus. All right. Hopefully you can hear that.
Yep.
Pushkin.
Good sound.
Back in 1863, the Russian novelist Dostoevsky gave his readers a challenge, one which I'm going to argue has a huge impact on happiness. Try to pose for yourself this task, he wrote, not to think of a polar bear. So for the next few seconds, let's do it. Let's not think of a white bear. Ready? Go. How'd you do? My guess is that even though you were trying not to think of a white bear, your mind immediately went to thoughts of a white bear. That's what Dostoevsky realized. He warned that when you try not to think of something, you will see that cursed thing come to mind every minute. The Harvard psychologist Dan Wegner was interested in these effects, which he referred to as ironic processes, cases where our minds, ironically enough, go to the exact place where we don't want them to go. Wegner created a version of Dostoevsky's polar bear challenge as an experiment with college students. He asked them to speak their stream of consciousness for 5 minutes.
Living with my boyfriend right now, so I didn't have to.
That sunburn, and I didn't want to be out in the sun.
Really quiet it is in here, which freaks me out a little bit.
Next, he asks them to repeat the task, but explicitly tells them not to think of a white bear. If the bear does pop into their minds while babbling,
You have to ring the bell.
All right.
I asked my students to repeat the experiment.
Okay.
Here's how they did.
Of course.
All right, and now, because I was told not to think about it, I'm thinking.
Ding, ding.
Other than that,
Keep ring the dings.
about my class ring and how when I'm nervous I get.
Yeah, so I'll stop it there. But
So that's everyone thinking of a white bear, is it?
yeah, so
Yes.
even though, she'll often involve her students in the experiments or ask them questions, which is probably why it's been very popular in at the university. So
Sure.
she does. She goes through a lot of explanations and examples of that as you listen to more of the episodes. But yeah, definitely worth a listen. And you'll learn heaps.
Yeah, no, it sounds fantastic. In fact, I know it is because, as I say, I have listened to some of it. So, but so that's a lot of people tonight. That's brilliant,
Yeah.
Wencee, as usual. That's awesome.
Thank
Really
you.
look forward
Also to
listening that
you.
one.
Yep. Thanks for all your reviews and your informed stories today. It's been awesome as always.
Yes, no. So get out there, people, and find out who Marjorie Taylor Greene is, and try to forget it as soon as you possibly can. And
just like the white bear, try not to think about the white bear or the MTG.
Yes, that's right. Don't think about the MTG, but actually don't think about the
please
MTG.
don't.
All right, no, don't think about it. It might go away if we don't think about it. So do yourself a favour. That is done and dusted. The Happiness Lab, as Wencee said, from the Pushkin Industries stable, and Dr Laurie Santos, and Spies in the Outback with Alex Barwick from Expanse, which is a ABC listen, I think so. So it's good night for me. Thank you as always, Wencee. Absolute pleasure as always, and we will see everyone next week.
All right.
If you've been listening on the pod, thank you very much. And we will talk to you soon. Good night for me.
And if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Bye.